What is up everyone, Xeno What If here. For those that are new to my YouTube channel, subscribe immediately to see more content, and also leave a comment down below to suggest more amazing kinds of videos. Bring in the first movie of What If called, What If TF2 Mercenaries were sent to Remnant. Link down in description of the fanfiction this What If. TF2 characters are actually from SFM series such as the Scratched universe including server blight. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 1. Unknown Infection. Above the planet's orbit, a UFO not from the universe of RWBY floated menacingly. As a group of three-legged roamed the city, menus, laid eye contact directly at it. Looked only to be infected. Even Atlas soldiers were also infected as well. By these unknown things acting normal, almost like skinwalkers. In the Beacon Academy, the well-known academy for huntsmen and huntresses, Ozpin, the headmaster of Beacon Academy, noticed something was wrong and is very wrong, knowing many people were acting weird and strange, but he thought nothing much of it. There have been reports of missing people, but nothing. As if everything was more like a dead end or a roadblock. Just what in the world is happening here? Ozpin said. Glinda also notices as well that many pro-huntsmen were also missing, which someone might have gone Mia or disappeared off the radars from Beacon Academy or any other huntsman academy as well, which was unusual. Any last known reports of any missing individuals went completely blank. This is rather troublesome, Glinda said. I know. And besides, we can't send in our first years. We don't even know what exactly is even going on, Ozpin said. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the slum area of the city of Vale, in a White Fangs operation, a portal opened up getting Roman's attention amongst many of the White Fangs. Two individuals that were actually cleaners to be hired, only to be turned out to be Jacket and Fixer, which were confused. Fucked up bloody hell, what in the world's going on here? Fixer said, looking around. Oh, a human. What are you doing here? White Fang member said. Yeah. Besides, how did you find out about this hideout? Unless you wanna be killed for it. Roman Torchwick said. As Fixer and Jacket had no choice but to fight. Jacket, being very quiet, was able to take on many of the White Fang members, seeing that you could tell that many of the people have animal-like features such as antlers, ears, tails. He was able to grab a knife and stealthily all of them. Luckily, Fixer had a pistol, Silent Third, as they came across Neo. Neo was rather surprised to see someone was more silent. But luckily, Fixer was able to take down both Neo and Roman. Fixer threw one of the explosives of dust shooting at it, causing a loud explosion, getting the nearby residents. Even police sirens were heard as Roman tortured and Neo ran away. Maybe we should follow them. As soon as both the Fixer and Jack look outside and hear police sirens until they find a manhole. However, one Fixer and Jacket did not realize that there was one of the walkers watching from a far distance as the two of them escaped the police into the sewer system, not realizing that Jacket left one of his knives behind as the Vale police forces had their guns drawn and entered the building to see no one was there but a group of dead White Fang members until one of the officers or detective found the knife, which was an odd sort of weapon. What in the bloody hell happened over here? The officer said looking around, seeing the destruction that happened in front of him. Of many of the countless dead bodies of the White Fang. Not really that one of the officers became a distorted, in another term for infection, individuals. Chapter 2. Where are we? Somewhere in the city of Vale, morning time as the sewer pipe opened, it partially kicked open from within an alleyway as soon as possible. Jacket and Fixer looked around wandering the streets. As many of the residents of giving Jacket an eerie look because of having a ski mask on. Some of the civilians, muttering things like he was just like a person hiding scars or thinking that he was a serial killer. Jacket wanted to give those civilians a peace of mind only for Fixer to put a hand on his shoulder, shaking his head as they went to a nearby shop as known as Dust Until Dawn, which was a strange name, but they decided to go ahead and as even the shop owner was kind of eerie of him, of Jacket having a ski mask on his Fixer, reassured the shopkeeper. Don't mind my friend. Let's just say some scars he had. Trying to hide it. Unless you want him to take off the mask, guys. I would recommend you don't. Fixer said, calming the shop owner. A fixer took a look around the place reading a magazine when he didn't realize that there was a certain red-hair hoodie huntsman by the name of Ruby Rose, the team leader of RWBY. As Fixer noticed her, "Hey, I guess you're pretty much a weapons fanatic, aren't you?" Fixer said as Ruby noticed him and nodded, seeing that she wasn't much of a social life with people. "Yeah, thank you," Ruby said. "Jesus. I mean, I know weapons are pretty cool and all, but Jesus. Like, look at all those weird insane weapons. I mean, I've been too much overkill, but still cool at least." Fixer said. "What do you mean just cool? Weapons are a part of ourselves. Ourselves and a piece of us," Ruby said protesting. "Yeah. But isn't a person more important than a mere object of metal? After all, if a weapon is more important, then what exactly is someone close to you is more important than just some mere object? Sure, you could replace a weapon, but you could never replace someone who's close to you." As Ruby stopped for a moment and took in what Fixer said. If a weapon could be replaced, what would have happened if someone close to her was gone forever? "Hey, what exactly is your name exactly?" "My name is Ruby Rose. And you are?" Ruby Rose said, introducing herself. "My name is Fixer. And speaking of which, as soon as the jumpsuit arrives behind Ruby." As Ruby turned around, she almost squealed in fear as why how terrifying Jack it is because of the ski mask. Ski mask. Almost as if some kind of psychopath from an asylum, as Fixer put a reassuring hand on Ruby, explaining that he isn't much of a bad person. He prefers wearing the ski mask on to hide away the scars, as Ruby couldn't help but feel a bit nervous, but introduced herself as Ruby Rose as Jacket nodded to himself by waving his hands. As Ruby noticed he couldn't talk and Fixer explained that he suffered an injury. As some time later passed, they went their separate ways and left the store. As soon as Weiss explained about an attack that happened at one of the White Fang bases of operation in the city of Vale. However, there were some blurry pictures of the two individuals. After Ruby notices and decides to go in and confront them, seeing that they were the same people that she interacted with in the store, as they were ready to beat the absolute crap out of them, only for a Fixer to show up. "Oh, yeah, you're really scary, you complete psycho," Young taunted. Jacket, only for the Jacket to remove his ski mask and made every single one of Team RWBY, killing Ruby herself. Horrified at his face being revealed, causing them to faint, even Young, the strongest or not so strongest arrogant blonde slut, to also faint as well. Even Blake saw a lot of horrible things, but this was something beyond the scarred face of Jacket put on his ski mask as they continued to make their getaway. As they found an abandoned industrial place, which was also rebuilt as a base of operation by VAC, a special military organization. As Dave Nett, a scout known as Foster, a major part of VAC alongside a group of other armed soldiers of VAC. "Well, it's good to see that you guys have also seen this here as well," Foster said. "No kidding. I mean, to be honest, it certainly seems we're no longer well, who knows where we are exactly," Fixer said, as soon as a spy wearing a helmet that is also part of VAC, known as Bravo, came back from doing recon missions. "Well, judging from the environment and not to mention those black creatures known as Grim, we're not exactly on Earth, seeing that the moon has also been shattered. It seems that we're on another planet," Bravo said. "Well, it certainly seems that this has gone a bit complicated," Foster said. "So what do we do now?" Fixer said. "Well, it seems that we're going to have to keep a low profile. Seeing that the money we have from Earth and the currency of this planet is rather foreign. Waiting at you too. We'll have to get some jobs," Foster said, as both Fixer and Jacket nodded at each other. Chapter 3, The Unknown. Location, City of Vale, Beacon Academy. At Beacon Academy, Ozpin was able to get the reports on Team RWBY, especially the encounter of the two unknown individuals. However, as Ozpin looked directly at the two unknown individuals, he saw them doing somewhat cleaning and janitoring duties. However, he was rather more uneasy with the one having a hockey mask, which almost looks more like a serial killer, but at the same time doesn't really pose much of a threat, which was rather off. "It is a strange world we live in," Ozpin said. As Ozpin remembered about the incident of an unknown virus and about missing people disappearing left and right out of the blue, which wasn't normal for some people. Meanwhile, at the city of Vale, many of The people can help but be happy for the two individuals except for Jacket being the one having a ski mask on his face, which was rather a bit unusual, and was rather shady looking compared to your normal standard kind of guy, but he was willing to help even though he wasn't able to speak. He was able to down things on paper to make anyone know it is what they need and help them. In the end he was kind of chill dude. As they were walking downtown, Fixer and Jacket noticed something was off. Many of the civilians that were passing by were acting a bit unusual. That's when a familiar girly-like voice was heard. "Hey you," Ruby said from a far distance as Ruby ran directly at them with her team behind using her rose-like speed as the two stopped, only for Ruby to stop, however only to comedically fall on the ground behind them, which the two of them sweat dropped. "Okay, seriously kid, we don't got time to waste on," Fixer said, as a Jacket nodded. "It doesn't matter. You're still vigilantes. You still have done a lot of crimes," Blake said. "My god, are you really that stupid? All we did was doing some enchantment, janitor duty, helping people at the store while also making some money. Is that a crime?" Fixer said, raising an eyebrow. "It doesn't matter if you're janitor or whatever, you're still criminals for doing criminal activities," Yang said. As they were about to fight, the crowd of people stopped. As Fixer noticed, the people stopped. And then they all turned directly at them. As Fixer noticed, something was off about the group of people. They weren't acting lively. He noticed their eyes. Then, giving off a creepy smile. Guys, I think we might have something more important to take care of," Fixer said, getting Jacket and Team RWBY attention, as they noticed the group of people smiling at them creepily. "Okay, I think you should actually mind your own business. Besides, this is official huntsman and huntress's business," Weiss said, creeped out by the people smiling and staring at them unusually. However, none of them didn't respond, still giving off a creepy look. As Ruby decided to approach one of the civilians. Listen, we don't want to cause a scene or anything, but I think you should." Only for Ruby to get punched in the face by one of the civilians. So hard against the wall, knocking the wind out of her, as Yang, being the overprotective sister, punched one of the civilians. However, her punch did nothing, shocking her, as one of them grabbed her hair and slammed her to the ground, and throwing her directly into Ruby, knocking her out as well. Blake and Weiss looked directly at the civilians in even more shock and fear. As then their faces begin to distort, almost deformed, like speaking backwards, as Blake and Weiss didn't want to fight against the civilians, but this was something beyond anything that they have ever seen. As Fixer and Jacket stepped in, their guns pointed. "What are you doing? They're civilians," Weiss said. "None anymore. What has become of them? They've lost their humanity," Fixer said. You as one of the distorted civilians charged at Blake and Weiss. However, only for Fixer to grab one of the civilians and shooting them down with his pistols. Soon many of the police officers aimed their weapons directly at Fixer. Freeze. However, only for one of the deformed civilians tried to attack the officer, as the officer freaks out seeing the civilians like this. However, the dust bullets don't work on the deformed, distorted civilians, as they began running. Some acted more like wild, vicious animals, speaking gibberish and backwards words. However, as the two cops were about to end up being dead, only for Jacket to get his knife, stabbing them and neck snapping them, saving them, as Jacket wrote on a piece of paper saying, "Are you alright?" As they couldn't be grateful, but they noticed how the civilians were acting unmorally. As soon Jacket brought out some flame grenades, killing them. That's what shocked Blake and Weiss, is that the flames, their bodies, began to melt in a green pool of liquid. As Blake and Weiss were shocked that normally a body would stay solitary. But this was something beyond anything that they could ever imagine. Even the cops thought that this was something beyond anything. As Ruby and Yang also saw the many distorted civilians started melting into piles of goo. "What the hell are those people?" Ruby said shakily. Even Yang was in a loss for words. She had never seen anything like this. A person's body to be melt into a liquefied goo. "I know many of you have questions, but trust me. What you have fought in was something beyond, not even a grim or whatever your huntsmen weren't prepared for," Fixer said. "Because I encountered this organism before. Lost so many friends because of this damn virus," Fixer said, clenching the gun in tears. "And trust me, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into," Fixer said, as both of them walked away, as the cops do know what to respond. Sometime later, Ozpin did see the recording of Fixer and Jump Jacket, fight against civilians who acted a bit abnormally, their face twisted and deformed, and their bodies melted into pile of goo, which was rather strange and bizarre. This was beyond anything that not even the huntsmen have ever encountered before. Chapter 4, Stand Users. Somewhere else. Across Remnant. Location. City of Atlas. The city of Atlas that was flying in the sky. However, some ships were destroyed. Many soldiers of Atlas became. Many of the soldiers were arrogant, but they weren't prepared for a threat like this. One soldier ran for his life. Atlas soldier. Oh God, oh God, oh God. This isn't happening. Why? The Atlas soldier said, running in fear, as soon when it distorted. Atlas soldiers crawling on the ceiling like a wild animal, grabbed him and started devouring him as screams were heard. Corpses of many scientists and Atlas soldiers. General James Ironwood could see was in shock and disbelief that the world's mighty military strength to be unknown, fallen to an unknown kind of disease or infection, turning many of the soldiers into unknown creatures. God damn it, why? I thought we were meant to be the strongest, but this is just, Ironwood said, as Winter tried to hold off against many of the at least Atlas soldiers who are now distorted Atlas soldiers. She knew she had no choice but to fight against and kill many of the Atlas soldiers, even alongside the Aesops, Clover, Vernal, Harriet, and the other members as well. Well now, isn't this quite a bit of a mess? Meros said. Indeed it is, Clover said. As more and hordes of distorted chem coming only for someone of a man. Having being heavy, but however known as Heavy Guy, as many of the distorted creatures once at the soldiers. Having her distorted face speaking backwards, looking directly at the TF2 Mercenary Heavy class. Having a JoJo-like appearance, and soon it will his stand appeared beside him, punching through every single one of the distorteds as if they were nothing. Ironwood, Winter, even the Aesops were surprised as if this could be some kind of semblance. But they have never seen a semblance that took on a human-like figure before. When the world is. Winter was about to say something only. One of the store it's only for another stand user. As it turned out to be a TF2 blue soldier having someone of a trench coat and a hat. As his stand being named American Mitt. As American Mitt used explosives, grenades, throwing it, killing off many of the distortants. As to General Iron Wenster, they're amazed by these two individuals as a TF2 blue soldier known as Kia. Are you alright? Kia said. I'm fine, but who are you people? General Ironwood said. That's not important, Kia said, as they continued taking down many of the distorted. And finally it was over. At least you can finally tell us your names. Winter said, a bit impatient. Who we are doesn't matter. Be lucky that we came here just to save you. Unless you would have ended up in a grave. Kia said. Anyway, I have to admit, for such a futuristic like this to be destroyed because of these things. Heavy Guy said, pointing to the distortants. The question is, how exactly do you get infected? Clover said. Is for one not to actually look at a walker. Kia said. Look, we're not here to waste your time. But for the time being, at least, you can take us off. Somewhere that we can actually rest for the time being. Heavy Guy said. Fine, forever's worth it. Thank you. The Kingdom of Atlas owes you so much. General Ironwood said, saluting them, as Kia nodded, it's what we do to help those in need. In situations like this, Kia said, as the Aesops escorted the two sand users to an Atlesian bullhead, took them somewhere, as General Ironwood and Winter were rather surprised by the two unknown individuals. Without those two individuals, who knows what exactly could have happened. Meanwhile, up above space, the UFO continued observing. While looking at Atlas's technological advancements, it was pathetic. As the leader of the whole situation and the mess that how things are now, as the leader of the distorteds decide to continue watching from above his UFO above the planet Remnant orbit with amusement. Chapter 4, Stand Users. Location. Atlas, the floating city. The city of Atlas hung in the sky like a jewel of human achievement, a testament to dust technology, military might, and human ingenuity. But now, fires raged across its gleaming surface. Destroyed airships tumbled from their moorings, crashing into the lower city below. Sirens wailed constantly, their screams echoing off metal walls. General James Ironwood stood on the observation deck of his command center, watching his world crumble. The most powerful military force on Remnant was falling. Not to an invading army. Not to Grimm, but to something unknown. Something that had spread through his soldiers like wildfire, turning them into monsters. On the monitors, he watched as Atlas soldiers, his soldiers, twisted and contorted into horrific creatures. Their bodies elongated, their joints bent backward, their mouths opened too wide, filled with too many teeth. And they spread. One soldier ran through the corridor below, his screams echoing through the comms. "Oh God, oh God, oh God. This isn't happening. Why? Why?" A distorted soldier crawled across the ceiling above him, moving like a spider, its head twisting completely around to face its prey. It dropped. The screams cut off abruptly. Ironwood turned away from the monitor, his mechanical hand clenching into a fist. God damn it. Why? He slammed his fist against the console. I thought we were meant to be the strongest military on Remnant. But this is just... General. Winter's voice cut through his spiral. She stood at the doorway, sword drawn, breathing hard. We need to move. Now. Behind her, the sounds of combat echoed through the halls. The Ace Ops stand their ground. In the main hangar bay, the Ace Ops fought desperately. Clover's fishing line whipped through the air, yanking distorted soldiers off balance. Harriet blurred past, her speed semblance allowing her to strike and retreat before the creatures could react. Vine's constructs of hard light formed barriers, buying precious seconds. Elm slammed her hammer into the ground, sending shockwaves through approaching hordes. Marrow's semblance froze several in place, but more kept coming. Well now, Marrow said, panting, this is quite a bit of a mess. Indeed it is, Clover agreed, dodging a swipe from a distorted soldier's elongated arm. Any bright ideas? Survive, Harriet suggested, her voice tight. More distorted soldiers poured through the hangar entrance. Their movements were wrong, jerky, unnatural, like puppets with broken strings. Their faces, still bearing traces of their human features, twisted into expressions of endless hunger. Winter fought alongside them, her glyphs slowing the horde while her sword found gaps in their defenses. But even she could see the truth. They were being overwhelmed. Then, a massive figure descended from above. Heavy Guy landed in the center of the horde, his bulk crushing two distorted soldiers on impact. The creatures turned toward him, their distorted faces focusing on this new target. Heavy Guy grinned. Behind him, a figure materialized, tall, muscular, radiating power. A stand. Its appearance was unmistakably JoJo-inspired, all sharp angles and imposing presence. The stand moved. Its fist connected with the first distorted soldier, and the creature simply ceased to exist, punched into oblivion. Another swing. Another annihilation. The stand carved through the horde like a scythe through wheat, each punch sending distorted soldiers flying apart. Ironwood, watching from the upper balcony, froze. What is that? Winter's eyes widened. Some kind of semblance. But I've never seen a semblance take a human-like form before. The Ace Ops stared in disbelief. They had seen countless semblances. Nothing prepared them for this. Before anyone could process what they were seeing, another figure joined the fray. He wore a trench coat and a hat, distinctly out of place in Atlas's military installation. The TF2 Blue Soldier, known as Kia, raised his hand. Behind him, his stand materialized, American Mitt. American Mitt didn't punch. Instead, its hands morphed into launchers, firing concentrated explosive rounds into the horde. Grenades materialized from nowhere, arcing through the air. Each explosion eliminated multiple distorted soldiers. The two stand users worked in perfect synchronization, Heavy Guy's stand crushing anything that got close, Kia's stand eliminating anything that tried to flank. Within minutes, the hangar was clear. Silence fell. Kia turned to Winter and the Ace Ops, his expression unreadable beneath his hat. Are you all right? Winter straightened, her professional composure returning despite her shock. I'm fine. But who are you people? That's not important, Kia said simply. Heavy Guy approached, his stand fading. The question is how you got infected in the first place. Infected. Ironwood descended from the balcony, his mechanical footsteps echoing. These are my soldiers. What happened to them? Rule number 1, Kia said grimly. Don't look at a walker directly. Their gaze spreads the distortion. Ironwood processed this. Walker. The things that used to be human. They're called distorted now. And the ones who started all this. Walkers. They spread the infection. Winter stepped forward, her impatience showing. Now can you at least tell us your names? Kia met her gaze steadily. Who we are doesn't matter. Be lucky we came here to save you. Otherwise, you would have ended up in a grave. Or worse, one of them. Winter opened her mouth to argue, but Clover placed a hand on her shoulder. Easy, Winter. They saved us. Heavy Guy surveyed the destruction. For such a futuristic city to fall this fast, these distorted are no joke. We need to understand what we're facing, Ironwood said, his command presence returning. If you have information, we need it. Kia and Heavy Guy exchanged a glance. A silent conversation passed between them. Finally, Kia nodded. Fine. For now, at least, we could use a place to rest. Somewhere secure. Ironwood didn't hesitate. Done. The Kingdom of Atlas owes you both a debt. He saluted, his mechanical hand whirring as it rose. Thank you. Kia returned the nod. It's what we do. Help those in need. The Ace Ops moved to escort the two stand users to a waiting Atlas bullhead. As they walked, Marrow couldn't help but stare at Heavy Guy. So, that thing that appeared behind you. That was your semblance. Stand, Heavy Guy corrected. Stand. You wouldn't understand. Marrow shrugged. Fair enough. As the bullhead lifted off, carrying the stand users to safety, Ironwood and Winter watched from the hangar bay. Without those two, Winter said quietly, we would have died. Ironwood nodded slowly. Whoever they are, wherever they came from, they just became our best hope. Above Remnant, the commander's observation. High above the planet, in the darkness of space, the UFO hovered silently. Its hull absorbed light, making it nearly invisible against the stars. From this vantage point, the commander could see everything. On his view screen, he watched the footage from Atlas, the stand users arriving, the distorted being eliminated, the survivors being rescued. He smiled. Fascinating, he murmured. Stand users in this world. An unexpected variable. Behind him, Dr. Watts worked at a console, analyzing data. The distortion is spreading slower than projected. These, stand users, appear to be immune. Of course they are, the commander replied. Stands are manifestations of the soul. The distortion affects the body and mind, but the soul. That requires a different approach. He steepled his fingers, watching Atlas burn. Let them have their victory. Let them think they're winning. The more they fight, the more data we gather. And when we understand their abilities completely. He trailed off, his smile widening. Watts glanced up. And the other kingdoms. Let the infection spread. Let chaos reign. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late. The commander leaned back in his chair. This world will fall. And when it does, I will have everything I need. On the screen below, Atlas continued to burn. Distorted soldiers roamed its streets. Survivors hid in shadows. And in the darkness above, the commander watched it all with amusement. Chapter 5: A Menagerie of Mayhem. Location: the Emerald Forest. Team JNPR's training session had descended into pure confusion. One moment, they were sparring. The next, they were surrounded by a menagerie of creatures that defied all logic and biology. A small, woolly creature with a single, curious eye, a goodwig, bleated and bumped into Nora's leg. Humanoid flies with bulbous eyes, dubbed buzzles, buzzed around Ren's head. Most bizarre were the small, colorful, imp-like creatures with simplistic, almost crudely drawn faces. One with a fiery expression, a pyro-faced runt, playfully set a leaf near Nora's foot smoldering. Hey, what the hell? Nora yelled, stomping the embers out. Where did these things come from? To be honest, I have no idea, John said, lowering his sword. He pointed to a small cloud of floating puffballs, some emitting a faint green mist, Nimpuff poison types, while others gave off a chilling cold, Nimpuff ice types. They drifted aimlessly, completely minding their own business. Okay, now this is getting from strange to absolutely weird, Pyrrha stated, her spear held warily but not raised in outright aggression. The forest was teeming with them. A sentient, grumpy-looking bucket with hands, a mumblermet, clanked past. Small, bottle-like creatures with crab legs skittered under logs. None were hostile. They simply existed, going about their inexplicable routines. I think we should report this to Professor Ozpin, Ren suggested, the voice of reason as always. This is unprecedented. Location: Beacon Academy, Headmaster's office. Ozpin steepled his fingers, watching the footage Team JNPR had captured. His usual calm demeanor was stretched thin. Well, this is just getting stranger by the minute, he murmured to himself. The creatures weren't grim. They showed no aggression towards humans or faunas. In fact, the live feed showed a group of spiky Nimpuff poison types launching their quills into a pack of Beowulfs that had gotten too close, effortlessly dispatching the grim. Elsewhere, a mechanical-looking creature, an iron boilter, engaged an Ursa without any prompting, its metallic fists pummeling the beast into black smoke. What Ozpin did not realize was that he was looking at capsters, entities from a reality utterly alien to Remnant. Location: an unknown forest, somewhere in Remnant. Two figures clad in familiar blue uniforms trekked through the undergrowth. Top, the scout, moved with restless energy, while Beanie, the soldier, marched with grim determination. "Man, this place is whack," Top said, swatting at a buzzing insect that wasn't a buzzle. "No baseball, no good roads, just a bunch of trees and those freaky black creatures." "No kidding," Beanie grunted. "And no intel on any of these capsters types. Back home, you know what to expect. A charge and targe lets you charge. A critskrieg lets you crit. When you incinerate a guy with a flare gun, he turns to ash. Here, nothing makes sense. And when we woke up here," Top added, pointing a thumb at the sky, "the moon was broken. Don't you find that a bit weird?" "To be honest, I have no idea," Beanie replied, his voice flat. "Our mission is clear. Find any friendly capsters, secure a position, and assess the threat." Location: orbital UFO, above Remnant. The commander observed the planet below through a vast viewscreen, speaking in guttural, alien tones to his subordinate walkers. "Less than this planet is trivial. The natives are blind. They fight amongst themselves and the local fauna, unaware that we are the source of the chaos infecting their kingdoms. How pathetic. Greater than." He turned to his three most loyal generals, who stood at attention. One was a sniper, his face hidden by a hockey mask, a long-range rifle on his back, CBS. The second was a spy, impeccably dressed in a suit and holding a butterfly knife, the gentleman. The third was a plague doctor, his face obscured by a beaked mask, a spectral, healing aura, his stand, Virus, hovering near him. Less than go, greater than the commander ordered. Less than spread chaos. Corrupt their strongholds. Let them tear themselves apart from within. Greater than. The three generals nodded and stepped onto a teleportation platform. In flashes of light, they departed, CBS to a misty alleyway in the city of Vale, the gentleman to the shadowy, politically fraught streets of Mistral. The commander's gaze then turned to a monitor showing a vast, dark continent swirling with negativity and grim. Less than and as for you, greater than, he mused, looking at the form of a human like grim residing there. Less than perhaps an alliance is in order. Greater than. Location: a dark cave, unknown. Deep within a forgotten cave, a singular, floating eye glowed with malevolent intelligence. It was Monoculus, the haunted eye of a demoman, a being of pure, calculated spite. Two other entities floated beside it, White Monoculus and Robot Monoculus, forming a sinister council of one. "I'm back," Monoculus hissed, its voice a whisper on the stale air. It surveyed the world through its unnatural senses, feeling the rising chaos, the new players on the board, the perfect storm of violence and fear. Remnant, already balanced on a knife's edge, was now primed for a chaos unlike any it had ever known. Chapter 6: A Sinister Alliance. Deep within the gloom of her dark castle, Salem observed the swirling images in her magical pool. Her inner circle stood in silence, watching the chaos unfolding in the city of Atlas. But it was not their grim causing the panic. Citizens and Atlesian soldiers alike were being twisted into horrific, mutated monstrosities with deformed faces, all while spectral, humanoid figures, stands, battled against unknown assailants. "Well, now," Salem murmured, a faint, cruel smile touching her lips. "It seems new players have entered the game. They could prove problematic." "Indeed," Watts agreed, adjusting his glasses as he studied the image of a stand. "The power to summon such entities is unprecedented. They are a fascinating variable." Tyrion, the psychotic scorpion Faunus, trembled with excitement. "Oh boy, my queen. Shall we go out and slaughter them?" "I think not," Salem replied, her voice slicing through his glee. Even if I permitted it, these entities could likely kill you with a flick of a finger. They show no mercy. Tyrion's face fell, and he slunk back into the shadows, moping. But this individual, Salem continued, gesturing to the scenes of transformation, the one creating these bioweapons, they have my full attention. A failed Atlas experiment. Hazel rumbled, his massive arms crossed. Unlikely, Watts countered. Atlas specializes in robotics and hardlight dust, not organic transmutation. This is a technology, or a horror, beyond their capabilities. A sudden, heavy knock echoed through the throne room, a sound not of flesh but of metal striking stone. All eyes turned to the great doors as they groaned open. The figure that entered was unlike anything they had seen. A tall, bipedal alien commander with a single, large cyclopean eye, its body encased in sleek, advanced armor. It was flanked by hulking mechanical walkers. The commander bowed with a surprising, almost mocking, respect. Salem's amusement grew. I assume you were the architect of this, artful chaos in Atlas? She asked. The alien commander nodded its head but remained silent. Can you not speak? Hazel demanded. The alien tilted its head and let out a series of guttural clicks and whirs, a language utterly alien to them. Just as Watts was about to scoff in frustration, one of the mechanical walkers projected a beam of light, and a synthesized, monotone voice translated the commander's words. I can speak. The fault lies in your inability to comprehend. Salem's smile widened. Impudent. I like that. You are here for more than a social call, I presume. I am here to propose an alliance, the translated voice stated. And what, Watts interjected, could you possibly want from us in return for such an alliance? I require data. Total information on this world, Remnant. Its history, its resources, its people. In exchange, I will provide you with technology that will make the might of Atlas seem like child's play. Watts's eyes gleamed with avarice. The promise of technology that could humiliate James Ironwood was a siren's call. Salem rose from her throne, the air growing cold around her. A true, genuine smile now graced her features. Here was a power not derived from the gods of this world, but from the cold, infinite void beyond. A new, devastating piece on the board. A partnership of mutual benefit, she said, her voice echoing with dark promise. You provide the key to shatter my enemy's defenses, and I shall give you the world on a silver platter. Welcome to my inner circle. The alien commander gave a final, sharp nod. In the silent understanding between the immortal witch and the star-faring conqueror, a dark, sinister relationship was forged, one that would plunge all of Remnant into a shadow deeper than any it had known before. Chapter 7. Janitors of Beacon Academy. The sprawling campus of Beacon Academy required a small army of support staff to maintain its gleaming facade. In a move that raised a few eyebrows, Headmaster Ozpin had recently hired 2 new janitors, a man who went by Fixer, and his silent partner, Jacket. Glinda Goodwitch had been immediately skeptical, particularly of Jacket, who never removed his stark white ski mask. Her concerns reached a peak when she insisted on a proper identification check. The moment Jacket reluctantly peeled back his mask, Glinda took one look at the network of severe, jagged scars covering the lower half of his face and promptly fainted. After that, Ozpin quietly suggested the mask could be considered part of the uniform. Their history was complicated. A confrontation with a certain T. Martin and the ensuing chaos of the disorders had left them with a strained, but ultimately neutral, relationship with the local authorities. This janitorial gig was a form of low-profile parole and a paycheck. Fixer was mopping the main hall, his movements efficient and robotic, ensuring every tile shone. His duties included the unenviable task of cleaning the student bathrooms, which, thanks to one particular team, was a daily trial. Team CRDL swaggered down the corridor, their leader, Cardin Winchester, at the forefront. He spotted Fixer and a cruel grin spread across his face. Oops, my bad, Cardin said with mock sincerity, deliberately dropping an empty soda can onto the freshly mopped floor. New janitor. Why don't you go ahead and pick that up? His teammates, Dove, Russell, and Sky, chuckled obsequiously. Fixer said nothing, his expression hidden behind his cap's brim. He bent down to retrieve the can. As he stood, Cardin shoved him hard, sending the janitor stumbling back and kicking over his bucket. Murky water cascaded across the floor and soaked Fixer's uniform. Oops, my bad, Cardin repeated, his voice dripping with malice. What are you gonna do about it, new janitor? Fixer slowly got to his feet, water dripping from his clothes. His voice was low and devoid of emotion. I would recommend you leave now. Cardin's response was a swift, hard punch to Fixer's jaw, sending him back to the wet floor. The bullies roared with laughter, their voices echoing in the hall. The laughter died in their throats. They hadn't heard him approach. One moment they were alone, the next a figure stood behind them, his presence as cold as the grave. It was Jacket. His head was tilted, and his blank, black-eyed mask seemed to absorb the light. Before CRDL could react, it was over. A blur of motion, 3 sharp cracks, and Dove, Russell, and Sky were on the ground, groaning and clutching broken limbs. Cardin, wide-eyed, stumbled back. Fear quickly morphed into blustering bravado. You think you're so intimidating. Oh, look at you. You're so scary, he taunted, his voice trembling. Jacket didn't move. He simply reached up, and with slow, deliberate movements, began to peel off his mask. Cardin's sneer faltered. He saw the scars, the brutal history carved into flesh, and the dead, hollow look in the man's eyes. It wasn't a face, it was a warning of what lay at the end of a path of violence. A high-pitched, terrified scream ripped from Cardin's throat, a sound utterly unbecoming of a huntsman in training. Before the scream could fully escape, Jacket's mask was back in place. A single, piston-like punch to Cardin's jaw silenced him, dropping the bully to the floor in an unconscious heap. From his position on the wet floor, Fixer gave a thumbs up. Jacket returned the gesture. Then, without a word, Fixer fetched a new mop and bucket and began cleaning up the mess, including the unconscious members of Team CRDL. It was just another day on the job. Chapter 8, We Are the VAC. Beyond the safe walls of Beacon, the Kingdom of Vale was under a new kind of siege. Strange, 3-legged walkers stalked the outskirts, emitting a bizarre energy that twisted and transformed citizens and huntsmen alike into monstrous entities known as the Distorted. This alien plague, the Distortion, was spreading across Remnant, Vale, Mistral, Vacuo, and even the mighty Atlas were not spared. Answering this extraterrestrial threat was a private military corporation unlike any other, the Vanguard Assistance Command, or VAC. Led by the stoic Commander Foster, their advanced helicopters and armored personnel carriers became a common sight, engaging the Distorted with brutal efficiency while evacuating civilians. In the ruins of a White Fang encampment, Sienna Khan watched as VAC soldiers efficiently neutralized her former followers who had succumbed to the virus. The Faunus leader, her pride warring with her pragmatism, approached Foster as the last of the creatures fell. I must admit my gratitude, Sienna said, forcing the words out. There was no other way to save my people from this accursed plague. Thank you. Foster gave a crisp, formal salute. No problem, ma'am. It's what we do. We help those in need. As the VAC forces withdrew to their hidden bases, the news networks of Remnant exploded with the story. In a televised interview, a Vale News anchor questioned Foster. So, Mr. Foster, this VAC, what exactly is your organization's purpose? We are a private entity dedicated to planetary defense from extraterrestrial threats, such as the distortion infection, Foster stated calmly. Our pillars are law, order, and justice. We do not force our protection on anyone, nor do we conscript. We provide flyers and open recruitment centers. The choice to live under our shield is yours. We offer training, technology, and a future. That is all. The public response was overwhelmingly positive. Here was a force that acted decisively, without the political maneuvering of the Atlas military. Even General Ironwood, watching from his office, clenched his jaw in frustration but had to admit they were effective. Winter Schnee and the Ace Ops, particularly the ever-professional Clover Ebby, watched VAC's operations with a grudging respect. Back in his office, Ozpin sipped his hot cocoa, his face grim as he watched the broadcast. A private military with technology rivaling Atlas, and they knew about the alien virus. Troublesome times indeed. An alliance with their commander Foster may soon be necessary, he mused to himself. Elsewhere, Ruby Rose was impressed by their efficiency, while Weiss Schnee reluctantly admitted they were filling a security void Atlas could not. On their lunch break, Fixer and Jacket watched the news from a Vale diner, nodding silently in approval. Across the city, other visitors to Remnant, a robotic scout doppelganger, and the stand users, Heavy Guy and KK, also watched, knowing this was only the beginning. High above Remnant, in a cloaked UFO, the true commander of the invasion watched the reports. He sneered, a guttural laugh echoing in his alien tongue. Let the VAC play at being heroes. His plans were proceeding through multiple phases. He had already provided Salem's inner circle with advanced weaponry, stoking the fires of her ancient war. He was aware of the White Fang's grievances and used the ensuing chaos as a perfect smokescreen. The squabbles between humans and faunus were trivial. Soon, this planet would be his. Chapter 9, Preparing for War. The VAC forward operating base was a hive of activity. The distorted were pressing closer to the walls of Vale, and a line of tanks and heavy artillery was being established to hold them back. I'm telling you, boys, those damn Grim, and the distorted, are getting closer by the hour, Dispatch muttered, adjusting the scope on his massive sniper rifle. No kidding, a VAC soldier replied, checking the ammunition on his belt-fed machine gun. It's bad enough. Now we've got Ozpin's secrets, Salem's cabal, and who knows what else. Speaking of Ozpin's secrets, another soldier added, having fixer and jacket embedded at beacon is paying off. We've got intel on the maidens, a secret vault, and a hidden floor. Should we be concerned? Not our primary objective, Foster stated, joining them at the command terminal. But we stay cautious. The Vital Festival is approaching. It's a perfect target for our enemy and a perfect opportunity for us to deploy and protect the civilian population. Speaking of the enemy, Boss, Bravo's synthesized voice came from the doorway, his armored helmet reflecting the holographic displays. The intel on Salem checks out. A humanoid Grim leader. And Beacon has been infiltrated by her agents, Cinderfall, Emerald Sustre, and Mercury Black. Just more problems to solve, Foster said with a sigh. But who am I to judge? Emerald's illusions are a priority. We'll use sonic grenades and flashbangs to disorient her. Take her alive if possible, she could be turned. That could work, Dispatch agreed. Blind her, smoke the area, and grab her while she's vulnerable. Our scouts also report other interdimensional travelers, Bravo added. Creatures called capsules, and 2 trainers named Top, with 2 Ps. They appear neutral, possibly potential allies. We also intercepted that Kiro fellow. Sent him back to Ozpin with a message. The next day, Ozpin stared in bemused astonishment as a disheveled and tightly bound Kiro Bronwyn was deposited in his office by a VAC drone. A note was pinned to his chest. Do not interfere with our operations, VAC. A rare, genuine smile touched Ozpin's lips. These newcomers were certainly direct. Back at the VAC base, the war machine was gearing up. Human and faunus recruits trained alongside advanced robotics. Foster stood before his core team, Bravo and Dispatch. The pieces are on the board, Foster declared. Salem, the distortion, this, Commander. They're all moving. It's time we made our opening play. He looked at his 2 lieutenants. Gentlemen, let us begin with Phase 1. As one, Foster, Bravo, and Dispatch turned and marched from the command center, their forms silhouetted against the massive war map of Remnant. The operation was now in motion. Chapter 10, Battle of Vale. The Vital Festival descended into chaos in the span of a single heartbeat. One moment, the crowd was cheering for the final match between Penny Polendina and Pyranikos. The next, Penny's strings were visible to the entire world, and Cinderfall's smile spread across every screen in Vale. Then the Grim came. Then the Distorted came. And then everything fell apart. The Distorted were worse than Grim. Grim were monsters, predictable, animalistic, driven by negative emotions. The Distorted had been people. Twisted, convulsing horrors that moved wrong, that sounded wrong, that spread an infection of madness simply by existing near you. When a distorted creature died, it didn't dissolve like Grim. It collapsed into green slime that bubbled and hissed, and if you touched it, you became one of them. The Atlas military's paladins and knights, hacked through Cinder's infiltration, turned their weapons on the crowds they were meant to protect. General James Ironwood watched from his flagship, his expression frozen in absolute shock and horror. His army had become the enemy. His weapons were murdering civilians. Ruby Rose fired crescent rows again and again, severing Grim limbs, piercing distorted forms. But for every one she killed, 3 more appeared. People she had waved to in the crowd hours ago now lurched toward her with blank, corrupted eyes and mouths that opened too wide. She couldn't shoot them. She couldn't. Ruby. Yang's voice cut through the chaos. We need to fall back. Now. But there was nowhere to fall back to. Then the Valiant Alliance Corporation arrived. They came in formation, dozens of dropships in charcoal gray, descending through the smoke-filled sky like harbingers of order. Their hulls bore the VAC insignia, a stylized V crossed with an arrow. The moment their ramps dropped, troopers in gray armor poured out, moving with mechanical precision. Pyros followed, their flamethrowers already igniting. Burning corpses. A VAC officer barked. Green slime indicates active infection. Nothing gets back up. Burn everything. The flamethrowers roared. Distorted forms that had been clawing toward civilians ignited, their death screams cut short as they collapsed into ash rather than slime. The green pools evaporated under the intense heat. The infection spread halted at that line of fire. Through the smoke, two figures moved differently from the soldiers. They weren't VAC, they were something else entirely. Kia wove through the battlefield like a ghost. To anyone watching, she simply appeared behind distorted creatures, touched them, and they fell. In reality, her stand, American myth, moved with her, an extension of her will that only she and other stand users could see. It struck vital points, disrupted the distorted corruption at its source, and moved on before the bodies hit the ground. Beside her, Heavy Guy was far less subtle. His stand, Crush, manifested as massive, armored fists that obeyed his mental commands. He pointed, and distorted creatures were flattened. He gestured, and hacked paladins crumpled like tin cans. He walked through the battlefield like an unstoppable force, his expression calm behind his visor. There's so many, Kia muttered, American myth felling another wave. We can't get them all. We don't have to, Heavy Guy replied. Just need to hold until VAC establishes the perimeter. As if on cue, the tanks arrived. VAC armor rolled through the shattered streets, modified M1 Abrams and heavier units that resembled nothing Remnant had ever built. Their cannons spoke in thunder, and distorted swarms evaporated under high explosive rounds. Dreadnought-class mechs, larger and more heavily armed than any paladin, followed behind, their multi-barreled weapons sweeping the avenues clear. A voice cut through the chaos, amplified and commanding. Listen up, civilians. Foster stood atop a VAC command vehicle, a microphone in his hand. His gray armor bore the marks of countless battles, and his presence demanded attention. You may not know who I am. My name is Foster, part of the VAC military group. We're here to help you, whether you like it or not. Every civilian, get to a marked evacuation point immediately. Move in an orderly fashion. Do not run. Do not panic. Do not separate from your groups. Move. The civilians moved. Fear still gripped them, but now there was direction. Now there was hope. Professors Port and Oobleck appeared beside Foster, their expressions a mixture of shock and desperate hope. Oobleck's usual rapid speech was absent, he simply stared at the organized military response unfolding before him. Who are you? Oobleck finally managed. Foster glanced at him. Let's just say I'm part of a military group that's more competent than most. Right now, that's all you need to know. Get your students to evacuation point Delta. We'll hold here. Port nodded, his usual bluster gone. Come, Oobleck, we have students to protect. They ran. Foster turned back to the battle. Team CFVY had established a defensive perimeter around a group of trapped civilians. Kokus minigun roared, cutting down Grim with mechanical precision. But then the distorted came, a wave of former festival goers, their bodies twisted, their eyes blank. Kokus' fire faltered. There, they were just people. They were just. Fox touched her arm. Coco. They're not anymore. You know what they are now. Coco closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were hard. Her minigun roared again, and the distorted fell. Around her, VAC soldiers watched and nodded approvingly. They understood that look. They'd all worn it themselves. Coco stared at the bodies, at the green slime beginning to pool. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Cinderfall surveyed the battlefield from a shattered building, a smile playing at her lips. Chaos. Perfect, beautiful chaos. Soon, Amber's remaining power would be hers. Soon, the Fall Maiden would be complete. She descended to street level, flames wreathing her form. Oh, What's this? New players. She spotted a cluster of VAC soldiers. I don't know who you are or where you came from, but I'll make sure you die here and now. The flames intensified. Then something stabbed her. Cinder screamed. She couldn't see it, whatever was attacking her, but she felt it. A blade in her back. Another in her knee. Another through her eye. She stumbled, clutching her face, blood pouring between her fingers. American Myth withdrew, visible only to its user. Kia stood 20 meters away, her expression cold. Talk less. Before Cinder could recover, Crush manifested. Massive fists slammed into her from 3 directions simultaneously, driving her to the ground. Heavy Guy loomed over her. Little woman needs to stop speaking so much, he said calmly. A VAC soldier was on Cinder in an instant, slapping reinforced handcuffs onto her wrists. The cuffs glowed faintly, experimental technology designed to suppress active semblances and maiden powers. Cinder screamed as she felt the Fall Maiden's fire sputter and die within her. No, you can't. Those powers are mine. Another soldier pressed a sedative auto-injector to her neck. Cinder's eyes rolled back, and she slumped into unconsciousness. Mercury Black fought with mechanical precision, his prosthetic legs delivering devastating kicks to any VAC soldier foolish enough to approach. He was fast, skilled, and utterly confident. Until Crush materialized behind him. Heavy Guy didn't bother with words. Crush grabbed Mercury's legs, both of them, and squeezed. The prosthetics crumpled like aluminum foil. Mercury screamed, collapsing as his legs were reduced to scrap. No, those were custom. Heavy Guy looked at the destroyed prosthetics, then at Mercury. Not anymore. Mercury lay on the ground, clutching the stumps of his ruined legs, his face a mask of disbelief and agony. VAC soldiers moved in, securing him with clinical efficiency. Nearby, Emerald Sustre watched her companions fall. Her semblance flickered uselessly. The VAC soldiers had deployed sonic emitters that disrupted her concentration. Every time she tried to create an illusion, the discordant frequencies shattered her focus. She raised her hands. I surrender. Please. I surrender. The soldiers paused, then nodded. One approached with reinforced cuffs. Smart choice. Ozpin stood amid the chaos, his cane planted firmly, his expression unreadable. Around him, VAC forces established a secure perimeter. Tanks rumbled past. Dreadnoughts loomed overhead. Engineers deployed automated flamethrower turrets that incinerated any distorted creature that tried to sneak through the shadows. A VAC soldier approached. Headmaster Ozpin, you're to come with us. Foster wants a word. Ozpin nodded. I suspected he might. As he was led through the secured zone, he watched the VAC operate. They were efficient. Brutal. Effective. They didn't waste lives. They didn't hesitate. They simply did. Thank you, he said quietly. No one heard him. That was probably for the best. In the land of darkness, Salem watched through her pool of shadow. Her expression, as always, was serene. But her eyes burned. Cinder had failed. Emerald had surrendered. Mercury was crippled. The Fall Maiden's power had been stolen from her agent before it could be fully claimed. Interesting, she murmured. Beside her, a figure shifted. The commander was not of Remnant, that much was obvious from its alien features and the strange, organic technology that seemed to grow from its body. It studied Salem's pool with unreadable eyes. It seems we have underestimated them, the commander said, its voice a discordant harmony of tones. Perhaps we should spread the infection further. Accelerate the timetable. I agree, Salem replied. Behind them, in the darkness, the devil stood silent and watchful. Their alliance was new, but it was growing stronger by the day. The commander gestured, and holographic displays flickered to life. The distortion will spread. Your grim will follow. Together, we will drown their world in chaos. Salem smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. See that you do. Chapter 11. Preparing for the final showdown. Weeks later. The Battle of Vale was over, but its scars remained. Beacon Academy lay in ruins. The CCT tower was a shattered monument to what had been lost. Thousands were dead, and thousands more had been transformed into distorted, forcing their loved ones to make impossible choices. But Vale still stood. The VAC had seen to that. In the weeks since the battle, the Alliance forces had consolidated their position. Atlas Tech had been thoroughly compromised. Cinder's infiltration ran deeper than anyone had realized. General Ironwood had returned to Atlas in disgrace, his military in shambles, his trust in his own system shattered. "What do you mean, hacked?" Ironwood had demanded, his voice cracking. "Our systems are the most advanced on Remnant." Foster had given him a flat look. "And yet a single infiltrator with a laptop turned your entire army against civilians. Maybe, most advanced, doesn't mean what you think it means." Ironwood had no response to that. Team RWBY sat in a quiet corner of the VAC's forward operating base. They had been given quarters, rations, and a wide berth by the soldiers. No one bothered them. No one asked questions. They were left alone with their thoughts. Ruby stared at her hands. They had killed. She had killed. Distorted creatures, yes, things that weren't people anymore, but they had been people. They had been festival goers. Families. Children. "We saved people," Weiss said quietly. "That's what matters. We saved people." "Did we?" Blake asked. "How many? How many couldn't be saved because we weren't fast enough? Weren't strong enough?" Young wrapped an arm around her sister. "We did what we could. That's all anyone can do." But the words felt hollow. They all felt it. In the VAC command center, Foster reviewed tactical data with his core team. Bravo manipulated holographic displays while Dispatch cleaned his rifle with mechanical precision. Jumpsuit and Bonkbot worked on integrating Atlas Tech with existing VAC systems, their modifications creating something new, Mark II TF2 robots, enhanced with scavenged Atlas components. "So let me get this straight," Glinda Goodwitch said, her voice tight. "This unknown infection was created by some alien organism, which was created by the Distorted." "That's correct," Foster replied. "The Distorted are a vector. The commander is the source. And now the commander has allied with Salem." Ozpin said nothing. He stood at the edge of the command center, staring out at the reconstruction efforts. VAC medics moved among the displaced, distributing food and supplies. Tech disposers hummed, generating rations. Engineers worked alongside Remnant's surviving construction crews, rebuilding what had been destroyed. "If it wasn't for your forces," Ozpin said quietly, "we would have been goners. All of us." "I know," Foster replied. "And right now, we need to work together. Our enemies have formed an alliance. Atlas Tech is compromised, but we've been busy." He gestured, and Bravo expanded a display. "We've scavenged what we could. Reprogrammed what couldn't be saved. We have new weapons, new strategies, and we have a plan." Ozpin turned. "For Salem. For Salem. For the commander. For all of them." Glinda stepped forward. "Salem is immortal. Truly immortal. Ozpin has tried everything over millennia. Nothing has worked." Foster's expression didn't change. "Immortal doesn't mean invincible. We have options. Experimental weapons that can strip powers, like we did with Cinder. Pocket universes where she can be contained. Dimensional rifts that lead nowhere." He paused. "We're desperate, so we'll do whatever we have to do to take her down." Ozpin studied him for a long moment. "You're angry with me." Foster met his gaze. "You sent children to fight your war. You lied to them, treated them as weapons, not people. That doesn't make you any better than the people you're fighting." Glinda started to protest. "Look, what we were trying to do was..." "Don't give me excuses." Foster's voice was cold. "We're willing to get our hands bloody. But we don't use kids as expendable resources. There's a difference." Ozpin nodded slowly. "You're right. I know you're right." He looked away. "I was desperate. I've been desperate for a very long time. That doesn't excuse it, but it's the truth." The silence stretched. "We move out next week," Foster finally said. "Final assault. If your students want to help, they can. But they're not weapons. They're allies. There's a difference." Ruby overheard the conversation. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop. She had come to ask about supply distribution, about helping with the reconstruction. But she stopped outside the command center when she heard Ozpin's voice, and she listened. "You sent children to fight your war. Treated them as weapons, not people. There's a difference." Ruby walked away before anyone noticed her. She found Young, and Weiss, and Blake, and she told them what she'd heard. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Yang's eyes hardened. "He saw us as weapons. All that talk about how special we were, how much potential we had, it was just that. Weiss sat down heavily. My father saw me as an asset. I came to Beacon to escape that. And now? Blake's ears flattened. The White Fang saw me as a tool. I thought I'd found somewhere different. Somewhere better. Ruby stared at her hands again. What are we supposed to do now? If everything we believed was a lie, what's left? Another silence. Then Ruby straightened. We help anyway. The others looked at her. Not because Ozpin asked us to, Ruby continued. Not because it's our destiny, or whatever. Because people need help. Because we can help. Because that's who we choose to be. Yang smiled slowly. That's my sister. Weiss nodded. Agreed. We help because we want to. Not because we're ordered to. Blake stood. Then let's go help. As the VAC mobilized for the final assault, Ruby watched from a distance. Tanks rolled past. Soldiers checked their weapons. Dreadnoughts loomed overhead. And in the distance, beyond the walls of Vale, the Darklands waited. Salem waited. The commander waited. But this time, Remnant didn't wait alone. Ready? Yang asked, at her side. Ruby nodded. Ready. They moved forward together, not as weapons, but as people. As friends. As family. And behind them, an army followed. Chapter 12. Monsters into Remnant. Meanwhile, at the Dark Castle, Salem began preparation, mustering her main forces. Stronger, deadlier Grimm gathered at her command, waiting to be summoned against the coming storm. The commander, the one who commanded the legions of Distorted, began activating an interdimensional portal. Not to Remnant. Not to Vale. To the Team Fortress 2 universe. A walker approached, one of the yellow commanders. Walker Commander, my liege, what exactly are you doing? The commander continued his work, interfacing with something beyond mortal comprehension. We are locating the coordinates of every single Team Fortress 2 universe. And I have come across something perfect. The portal flickered, revealing glimpses of impossible geometries. What I am doing, little one, is getting a trump card. The commander's voice echoed with dark amusement. Watch this world. Witness what true monsters are. The portal activated fully. From within emerged arcane, distorted figures, things that were once TF2 players, now reduced to something far worse. An amalgamation of simulated individuals from red and blue teams. The server blight. The commander activated a special device, bringing the blight under his control. Behind them, watching silently from the shadows of the portal's origin, stood three figures. The gentleman. CBS. Virus. Now, my new pets, go and unleash hell. The commander's smile widened. Show Remnant and the rest of these huntsmen the true nightmares of real monsters. The walkers began infecting every single blight, binding them to the commander's will. A massive herd of server blights began pouring through the portal, running alongside the Distorted and the gathered Grimm. Two worlds, now one army. Let's see if the planet itself can survive true monsters, creatures that were once human, now their worst nightmare. The commander watched as his unholy alliance of Grimm, Distorted, and server blight gathered for the final fight. Chapter 13, The Final Showdown Part 1. Tanks rolled forward, equipped with heavy plasma weaponry. Soldiers marched in formation, carrying kinetic weapons, energy-based rifles, and flamethrowers. VAC soldiers, commanders, pyros, including the two stand users, advanced alongside their custom-made robots. Above them, dreadnoughts loomed, missiles ready, energy weapons primed. And in orbit, a satellite weapon powered up. When it detected the mass of Distorted and server blight, it fired, a powerful beam carving through the enemy forces. Hundreds of server blights incinerated instantly. Grimm dissolved in the energy wake. The beam also carved directly at the battlefield below, catching Tyrion in its path. He was killed in the process. All units, open fire. Foster commanded. Go, go, go. VAC soldiers unleashed hell. Heavy artillery pounded the Grimm hordes. The satellite ion cannon continued firing, power weapons decimating waves of Distorted and blights. Sir, it seems they've got themselves a new type of creature, Bravo reported. Great. More surprises, Foster muttered. These ones are different. They're simulated. I've seen these before, they're called the blight. Yeah, I know. Don't get too close or touch them. Energy-based weapons will do good against them, meaning they won't be able to simulate anyone. All units, switch to energy weapons or flamethrowers. Immediately. Foster ordered. VAC members switched tactics, energy weapons flaring. Server blights began incinerating alongside the Grim. Flying Grim attempted to attack from above, only to be shot down by the satellite weapons multi-fire system. Helicopters and airplanes provided air support. Bombardment types fired directly at Grim pools, explosions large enough to destroy them entirely. Heavy Guy stepped forward, activating his stand, Crush. With the power of Omen behind him, he obliterated everything in his path, Grim, Distorted, and Server Blight alike. The power was enough to destroy even the most powerful Grim. Kia moved through the chaos, American Myth active. Every Grim fell to headshots. Grenades exploded among their ranks. A Grim lunged, only to be backstabbed by American Myth, incinerating instantly. All these maggots don't know when to quit, Kia muttered. The fight for Remnant had begun. Chapter 14. The Final Showdown, Part 2. The Fall of Salem. The orbital ion satellite fired again, its brilliant beam cutting through the darkened sky above the dark castle. This time, when the energy struck Salem directly, something fundamental changed within her ancient form. For the first time in millennia, Salem screamed, a true scream of agony. She looked down at herself in disbelief. Where there had once been pure, immortal darkness, there was now, flesh. Blood. Part of her was human again. The other part, Grim. And between them, where the beam had struck, she was bleeding. For the first time, ever, a strange peace settled over Salem's features. The millennia of pain, of isolation, of endless existence, it could finally end. A genuine smile touched her lips. Finally, she whispered, I can die. Rest. But then, a presence behind her. The commander moved with inhuman speed, his hand plunging into her chest before she could react. He ripped her heart out, holding it before her shocked eyes. Salem stared at him with absolute betrayal. What are you doing? You have served your purpose. The commander's voice was utterly cold, devoid of any emotion. And so has this world. He crushed her heart in his fist. Salem's body went limp, falling to the stone floor of the balcony. Dead. Truly, permanently dead. Below, on the battlefield, the Grim army froze. Every single creature stopped mid-attack, their red eyes blinking in confusion. They looked around, leaderless for the first time in their existence. Then, like a tidal wave reversing, they began scattering in every direction, fleeing, dispersing, finally free of Salem's control. VAC soldiers watched in stunned surprise as their enemies simply ran away. Well, Foster observed over comms, lowering his weapon slightly. That was an unexpected turn of events. Something must have happened, Bravo replied, scanning the chaos. Probably one of them killed the leader. And if the Grim don't have a leader, they're just a wild pack of animals now. Foster's tactical mind immediately shifted. Good. Leaves us with the real threat. He raised his weapon, voice sharp with command. All units, advance. Push forward. The VAC forces surged ahead, energy weapons firing. Tanks rolled forward, heavy artillery pounding the remaining Grim clusters. Dreadnoughts in orbit unleashed their payloads on the dark castle's outer defenses. The two stand users, Heavy Guy and Kia, joined the assault alongside their robotic allies. On the balcony of the dark castle, the commander watched his forces begin to crumble. But he was not a man without contingencies. Behind him, Dr. Watts worked frantically at a console, having agreed to help for a substantial price. And stationed throughout the castle were his three most powerful generals, Virtue, CBS, and the Gentleman. What the commander didn't realize was that his portal technology had done more than simply bring through the server blight. The dimensional rift had opened a pathway for something else entirely. Something iconic. Something hungry. The feast begins. The portal in the castle's main hall flickered and expanded. From its depths, a figure emerged, a soldier, unmistakably, but wrong. His eyes were hollow pits of hunger. His grin stretched too wide. And in his hands, he carried the half-eaten remains of a previous victim. Paini's Cupcake stepped into Remnant, inhaling deeply. I am Paini's Cupcake, you maggots. His voice boomed, echoing unnaturally through the hall. I will eat you. I will eat you all. The cannibalistic soldier moved with impossible speed. A group of distorted turned toward him, and were immediately torn apart. He didn't kill them. He consumed them. Limbs torn, flesh devoured, screams cut short. Walker, one of the commander's lieutenants, tried to react. He raised his weapon, shouted a warning. Hyena's cupcake was on him in an instant. A moment later, Walker was gone, devoured completely. The TF2 freak continued his rampage through the castle, leaving nothing but bones and blood in his wake. Server blight units fell before him. Distorted soldiers fled. Nothing could stop his endless hunger. Redemption found. Elsewhere in the castle, Bravo had cornered Hazel. The large man fought with desperate strength, but Bravo's skill and determination eventually won out. A well-placed strike to the jaw, and Hazel crumpled to the ground, unconscious. When he woke, he found himself looking up at Foster. The commander of VAC forces regarded him with something unexpected, sympathy. "Why?" Foster asked quietly. "Why did you join Salem?" Hazel's voice was rough with years of pain. "What else do you think? Because of my sister. Ozpin did this to her. She died because of his arrogance. His secrets. His game. And you think revenge would bring her back?" Hazel looked down at his hands that had killed so many. He said nothing. Foster's voice softened. "I don't know anything about your life. I don't know your sister. But I know revenge. I've seen what it does to people. It consumes them. It never brings anything back." He extended a hand. "You could have a choice to restart. Your sister, she would be proud of you if you did. If you chose to live. Join us." Hazel looked up, genuine surprise crossing his features. "Why give me a second chance? After all I've done?" "People deserve redemption," Foster said simply. "And you deserve it more than anyone I've met today." A long moment passed. Then, slowly, Hazel reached up and took the offered hand. Bravo's voice crackled over the comms. "Boss, we've got a situation. Found Salem's corpse. She's dead. The orbital ion satellite stripped her immortality, and the commander finished her off personally." Foster processed this information quickly. "That explains why the Grimm scattered. She was the ringmaster. Now they're just confused wild animals with nowhere to go." "Affirmative. What are your orders?" "Get ready to set this place to blow. Tell the engineers to max out the ion cannon. I want this entire castle destroyed down to the bedrock." "Agreed. But I recommend we get our troops out first." "Right." Foster keyed the general channel. "All units, this is Foster. Evacuation order is now in effect. Fall back to designated extraction points. We're bombarding this location in T-10 minutes. Stand united." As VAC forces began their orderly withdrawal, Heavy Guy and Kia encountered unexpected resistance in the castle's eastern wing. Two of the commander's generals blocked their path, Virtue and CBS, their stands already manifested. Viruz, controlling Virtue, stepped forward with a cold smile. "You two have been thorns in the boss's side for too long. You will perish here." The battle erupted instantly. American Myth manifested behind Kia, its spectral blades flashing. Viruz countered with precision, his own stand deflecting each strike. A flare gun shot burned through the air from Heavy Guy's direction, forcing CBS to dodge. But Viruz was skilled, perhaps the most skilled stand user the commander employed. He blocked, countered, pushed both heroes back with relentless pressure. Then, everything stopped. Time itself froze. Rick stepped out from behind a pillar, his stand drop it active, a hazmat suit protecting him from the temporal distortion. In the frozen moment, he moved forward and delivered a series of devastating punches to both enemy stand users, each blow landing with perfect precision. Time resumed. Virtue and CBS crumpled, their stands flickering. Heavy Guy and Kia spun around, weapons raised, then lowered them in shock. Rick shrugged, looking away with practiced disinterest. "Don't get me wrong or anything. I learned my lesson. The world's endangered and all that stuff. After this." He met their eyes briefly. "I'll do things my way. Separate. While you do your heroic thing." Heavy Guy nodded slowly, a smile crossing his face. "Good enough for me." Together, the three stand users combined their powers. Heavy Guy's crush. Kia's American Myth. Rick's drop it. CBS fell. The gentlemen, arriving moments later, fell just as quickly. Their stands dissolved into nothing. The commander's escape. On the burning balcony, the commander watched his final plans crumble. Hyena's cupcake was an uncontrollable variable he hadn't anticipated. His generals were dead. Salem was dead. The server blight was being systematically destroyed. It seems my plans have been ruined, he murmured to himself. No matter. I always have backup plans. This world has proven insufficient. There will always be another universe to conquer. He activated the portal device, a swirling gateway opening behind him back to the Team Fortress 2 universe. Above, the ion cannon fired its final, maximum-powered shot. The beam struck true, hitting both the portal and the main engine core of the commander's ship simultaneously. What? The commander started, turning. The explosion engulfed him. But it didn't kill him. The blast, combined with the unstable portal, sent him somewhere else. Somewhere far worse. Inside a black hole. Drifting. Conscious. Alone. Permanently. Victory. Foster's voice echoed across all remaining channels. All units, this is the final evacuation order. Get out now. We're bombarding this location with full power in 60 seconds. Everyone moved. Stand users sprinted for extraction points. Hazel followed Foster and Bravo. VAC forces piled into transports. The last dropships lifted off. The main server Blight stood alone in the dark castle's central chamber, its distorted screams echoing through empty halls as the ion cannon fired its massive payload. The beam struck. The dark castle was obliterated. The server Blight was destroyed, every last fragment. Grim, flying and ground types still in the area, were annihilated in the secondary explosions. The pool of Grim at the castle's base, source of countless creatures, disintegrated into nothing. Remnant was free. Silence fell over the battlefield. Then, slowly, cheers began to rise from the VAC forces. Now that is what I like to see, Kia said, watching the mushroom cloud rise from their transport's viewing port. That was close, Heavy Guy agreed, leaning back with exhaustion. Too close. It seems we've won the war. Foster allowed himself a genuine smile, rare, but earned. The threat to Remnant had finally, permanently, come to an end. But as the transport ships flew toward the horizon, none of them noticed the small, flickering portal that briefly opened and closed in the ashes below. And none of them saw the grinning soldier who stepped through it, looked around at the destruction, and licked his lips hungrily before disappearing into the wilderness. The war was over. But Paini's Cupcakes feast had only just begun. Epilogue. The beginning. In the aftermath, Remnant celebrated. The VAC explained everything, the distorted, the server Blight, Salem's death, the secret war between Ozpin and Salem that had spanned millennia. They showed footage of the fights. Of the monsters that were once people. Of the simulations that had nearly consumed everything. When Ruby learned about her mother's death, the truth of it, the circumstances, she broke down. What was she doing? Being a hero? Or just being a weapon? Yang was beyond angry. Weiss sat in stunned silence. Blake's ears flattened as she processed everything. But they celebrated anyway. Because what else could they do? The two stand users spent time with the surviving huntsman, teaching techniques. Fighting without weapons. Adapting. Beanie and Top trained some of the huntsmen to become capsters, similar to Pokemon trainers, but teaching them the different strengths and weaknesses of capsule types. Remnant began to rebuild. The Grim were gone, permanently. The environment healed. Technology advanced. A new future dawned. Ozpin looked out at the world he had fought to protect for so long. The war between him and Salem was finally over. But so many had died because of it. General Ironwood swallowed his pride for the first time in his life. He had lost. Atlas had lost. His advanced weaponry, his superior military might, none of it had mattered. Regret was all he had left. Inside a black hole, the commander repaired himself slowly. Endlessly. Trapped in permanent drift. Then, a sound. Demonic chanting. He turned. Archimedes, the demonic pigeon head attached to a medic's body, stepped forward. Behind it, a familiar figure emerged from the darkness. The commander's eyes widened. It is you. The figure extended a hand. An offer of alliance. The commander considered for only a moment. Then he reached out, and shook the hand of the Red men. And this is the end of the first movie of this amazing What If. I hope you all like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel to see more amazing content on my channel.